Hey y'all, Collin here, and welcome back to another installment of the Amador Local Leaders Thanksgiving Vegan Meal Series. Today we're going to be making our first Thanksgiving entree, a vegan twist on a classic meatloaf. Now, this recipe is pretty simple, but you have to get some ingredients that, some people might not have at home, like me. So, me and my family, we headed off to a local business here in Pleasanton called Jean's Fine Foods, and we picked up a few extra ingredients.
Such as chickpeas, lentils, get ourselves some flaxseed meal, some nutritional yeast, liquid smoke, bell pepper, parsley, and cilantro. Yeah, we were off.
And remember, if you don't have all of these ingredients, don't sweat. While I explain some of the vegan ingredients we're going to use today and the reason behind them, I'll also be talking about some substitutes you can use. But also, if you end up mixing in a non-vegan ingredient or two ingredients, it's totally okay too. A 95% vegan recipe is better than a 0% vegan recipe. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get started.
Up first, you're going to need some lentils. Now, these need some time to boil so that we can use them as soon as they're piping hot and ready. Now, we're going to prepare the vegetables that we're going to fry in either a frying pan or a wok. You're going to take one bell pepper and roughly dice it up. Get some of the whites out of the inside, slice them up, cube them up, and put them into your frying pan or wok. Next up are some carrots. You're going to be using about one large carrot or two medium-sized carrots. All these vegetable choppings, it can be pretty rough as for how much you're going to need. Next, we're going to take one large onion, and we're using half for the frying saute process. To dice them up easily, I like to do slits and cubes almost to the edge and dice them up like so. We're going to drizzle this with some olive oil. We're going to give that a nice mix, and then we're going to bring it on over to the stove.
And now we put on the stove to stir fry for a bit, of course adding some salt to taste, as well as pepper. And while we stir fry the vegetables, we're going to get started on the food processor.
Next up are all the things we need to put in the food processor. First, we have a can of chickpeas. We're just going to pour that in after we've drained it. And next, we have roughly 1/3 cup of parsley. We're just going to roughly snap that in half, put it in. We also have a nice 1/3 cup of cilantro. Do the same, stuff it in there. And we have some basil that I actually got from our plant in the garden. So around 1/3 cup of basil. Again, this is pretty rough. Moving this over so I can chop up that other half of large onion we didn't use. We're going to use a quarter, cutting it in a similar fashion. And we're giving it a very, very rough dice. Doesn't really matter for a food processor. Now we have some chili peppers. This is just to taste. Some sun-dried tomatoes, around half a cup. Some walnuts, around 1/3 to give this meatloaf some texture and a nutty flavor, alongside pine nuts. Now this alongside the basil will give it a nice pesto-y flavor. We're going to peel some garlic cloves. You can just put them in whole. The food processor will grind them up. And a drizzle of olive oil for moisture. And that's that. We're going to move all over our stuff and our materials. Getting our food processor all set. And it's time to mix. We're going to give this a few quick pulses in the beginning, and then we're going to let it run. Delicious. Alright, now that we've given our time for our lentils to boil and soften a bit, we're going to mix them up with the rest of our stir-fried vegetables. These have softened up as well, and now we're letting them simmer on low heat as we toss these lentils in. Make sure to drain them out pretty well. We don't want to get too much moisture into our stir-fry. We're going to mix that in. I use about half a cup of lentils, but it's honestly up to you. Depends on what your ratio to vegetable to lentil wants to be. Next, we're going to put in a teaspoon of plum extract. Now, this is a traditional Korean ingredient that's light and sweet and tangy, kind of like honey, but a little less viscous. It is high in fiber, antioxidants, vitamins, all that good stuff. And, you can replace it with adding a squeeze of citrus fruit alongside, say, agave nectar or maple syrup or something like that. Next up, we have about 3/4 cup of ketchup. Kind of hard to get out of the bottle, you gotta shake it real hard. Use your spatula to scoop it out. Now, liquid smoke is a really interesting ingredient. When you just like add a dash of it, it really makes something taste like it's been marinated or barbecued, like meat. But when it was made, there was no meat. It was like burning sawdust or saw chips or something. It's very potent though, so we're only going to put in a drop or so. Give it a quick stir before mixing it with the rest of the food processor ingredients up next. Alright, after having mixed up the food processor stuff already, we're going to transfer that into a large metal bowl. And we're gonna scrape that good. And we're going to be adding a few more things. For instance, we're gonna put in about, say, 1 1/4 cup of quick oats. Toss that in there. We're gonna give that a nice mix with our rice paddle. And now we're gonna put in the stir-fry vegetables. Combine that really well. It'll take a little arm work, but you got this. Alright. Looks very colorful.
Our final ingredients, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 375 for the final step.
Moving back to the bowl, we're going to put in about 1 1/4 cup of corn flour. Now, you can use panko or breadcrumbs instead, but, you know, this helps make the recipe gluten-free and more accessible to everyone. Toss that in there. And now we're going to throw in about 3 tablespoons of flaxseed meal. Now, this stuff, when it's mixed with hot water or some kind of moisture, is a great vegan substitute for eggs. High in fiber and full of healthy fats. We're just going to throw in about 1/2 cup of flour. Then we're moving on to agar-agar powder. We're going to throw in about 3 or 4 teaspoons. And this stuff is like gelatin's cooler, trendier cousin. It's gelatin derived from seaweed rather than pork or beef bones. And it's great for treating obesity, constipation, and other health benefits. Next, we're throwing nutritional yeast. This stuff is like a nutty, cheesy flavor, but you know, without any of the dairy. We're going to throw in about 3 tablespoons. Next, we're going to throw in about, say, 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. And to replace Worcestershire sauce, we're going to put in 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. If you could find vegan Worcestershire sauce, good for you. I couldn't. Makes a funny looking texture on top. And we're going to take a lemon, one of our final produce items. We're going to squeeze in half. This is around 2 tablespoons. Now, mixing this takes some, real arm work, but after a while, it should start looking great. If you need some help, like moisture to help you mix, throw in some olive oil. And it looks like this after a couple minutes of good mixing. Very meaty. Okay, we're going to now transfer this to our pan, or our, loaf pan. Luckily, this recipe made just enough to fill a standard, meatloaf pan, so we're going to use all of it in this single meatloaf. We're going to be kind of smoothing it down on top and rounding the corners to help make it look like, a genuine, good-looking meatloaf. And with a few minutes before the oven's done preheating, we're going to make our glaze. Now, this makes quite a bit extra, but, it's okay, you can use it as a dipping sauce. So, we're going to throw in 3/4 cup of ketchup, about 3 teaspoons of sriracha for a slight spicy heat kick, around 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, another good 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We're going to throw in 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, but you can use whatever vinegar you have at home. Garlic salt to taste, black pepper to taste, and give it a good stir. And we'll start looking like this. Quite a pretty sauce. We're going to put on the pseudo barbecue-y tangy sauce. Spread it all on top. Now give it a good generous layer because you want that flavor to really seep in while it's baking. And voila!
Now we're going to pop it in the oven for a solid 90 minutes. I know, be patient.
90 minutes later.
It's ready! Let her cool off for a bit.
An indubitably gorgeous specimen. And now, let us admire our new creation. Incredible. Beautiful. Outstanding. Never before seen. Always new. I don't remember rest of the quote.
Really good. Really good. My only issue is it's a little bit not the texture of meat, which is fine because I'm not the biggest meat fan anyway. And like I said, if you don't have all the ingredients, you don't have to follow this recipe perfectly. This isn't like baking or anything. Like, we estimated our measurements a lot, and honestly it came out really good in my opinion. So yeah, I hope you try it out. I hope you have a fun Thanksgiving or whatever you're watching this right now, whatever time it is. Check out some more of our Thanksgiving series videos made by other people. I'm not going to be in those. They make appetizers, other entrees, and desserts and stuff. I'm definitely going to check those out myself and imitate them. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you guys stick around. The sun's in my eyes. That's all.
It tastes extra good on the second day. So, I don't know if I can make it even more to make it. Just make it. It was really fun.